Did everybody get one of those small cards? You should have three cards per person, those small. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Ah, there's the voices. Great. My name is Mario Odighizuwa, and I am with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and we're here today to do a presentation called Ending the Silence. Everybody say, Ending the Silence. Ending the Silence. The hope is that we can end the silence on that quiet conversation around mental health or mental illness and sometimes even suicide, and have conversations on it. One of the biggest ways that we can do so is by busting stigma or ending stigma. All right, that tends to come with that silence. So you've already heard from Tristian and Hailey introducing themselves this morning. We'll hear a little bit more from them as they get ready to share. I have some video clips that I'll show you, some information. There's a couple of handouts that you've already received. One of them talks about NAMI. At the very top, it should say NAMI Multnomah. I think we may have ran out a couple, but at the very top, it should say NAMI Multnomah, and it has some of the support groups and the different services that we offer. There's a second handout that should say mental health in big letters at the very top. And then on the back side, it talks about the warning signs. Everybody say warning signs. Warning signs. Warning signs, that's right. So in the presentation, I'm going to also talk about warning signs, share those with you. And some of you have that handout, so you can kind of follow along a little bit on that. The third sheet is an evaluation form that we will need to get back from you at the end, if you can fill that out at the end of the presentation, so we can learn how to make this presentation better for students and youth in the future. All right. I think we gave each of you also the Ending the Silence trifold or the bifold card that looks like this. Yeah, it's green, looks like a piece of paper. If you don't have one, let me know. We'll come around and get one to you. But we'll refer to this a couple times in the presentation. It has a lot of good resources, good information. The number one resource that I want to point out, at some point we'll talk about it, but is the text line, the crisis text line that's there. All right, if you have a cell phone, you can save that in your phone. That way you can copy, paste it, and text it and send it to a friend who may need it in the future. All right, so one of the things that I really want to empower and encourage you to do today before you leave is to try to save that number in your phone so that you have it just in case. All right? And then lastly, there's 3 white cards, or some of you may have gotten the large card like this. 3 white cards that you have. On one of the cards, right on one of the cards, one of the things that you enjoy about life. One thing you enjoy about life, or one thing you enjoy about living. And this can be anything from Rocky Road ice cream to, who knows, Jay-Z. What's the new guy's name that's out? Who? Who is it?
I don't know.
No, I hear you just want to say it. Go ahead, say it.
Lil Nas X, the old time run guy.
Okay, him. It could be roller coasters. It could be traveling. Whatever it is, go ahead and write it down. Yeah. 3. If you don't have 3, let me know and I'll get you. You only have 1? Fold that over and use that one. So on one card, just write down, can we pass this one back? Can we pass those back to her? Thank you. One thing that you enjoy about life or living. All right. One thing you enjoy about life or living. And then on the second card that you have, go ahead and write down why you believe the presenter, which is me, is wearing all white today. Why you believe the presenter is wearing all white. So on the second card, write down why do you believe the presenter is wearing all white. All right. First card is one thing you enjoy about life or living. And the second card is why you believe the presenter, which is me, is wearing all white. All right. You don't have to say it out loud. I just want you to jot it down. So what is mental health? We all experience mental health, it says. Being mentally healthy means being able to enjoy life and feel good. Everybody say, feel good. Feel good. That's the hope, right? We want to honestly feel good. That's the goal. That's ultimately what we want to try to do, try to strive towards every day. So everybody has mental health. Mental health can be maintained with good habits. All right. Hailey and Tristan are later in the presentation going to talk about some of the coping skills and coping strategies that they use to get through their experiences, okay? So it says, what are mental health conditions? So there's a couple things there. The most important thing that I want you to focus on is on the right-hand side. And it says mental health conditions are not anyone's fault, all right? They are not something to be ashamed of, and they are not limiting. You can achieve your goals, all right? This is really important because a lot of people think that, oh gosh, it's over. You know, I've been diagnosed, or oh goodness, I have this, I can't do anything. But quite honestly, you actually can do more, and you'll see that as Tristian and Hailey will share from their experience later on. So here's the facts. It says 1 in 5 youth in the US are experiencing or will experience a mental health condition at some point in their lives. So that kind of probably matches a little bit of the hands that went up earlier of how many of us may even know someone. That was more than 1 in 5 in the room, just from that representation, all right? 50% of youth ages 8 to 15 with a mental health condition don't receive treatment. Could I hear just the ages in the room, if you could just call out the ages that you represent? 14. 14, that was a solid 14. All right, did I hear 15 somewhere? Okay, all right, I hear a solid 14. All right, good. So that represents, that's like right in the middle, right? Almost in the middle, 8 to 15, all right? And stigma, it says, is the biggest reason people don't seek help. Why do you think that is? Why do you think stigma is the biggest reason people don't get help? Anybody? Awkward or embarrassing, yep. You hit it on the nail. Anybody else?
They might not understand what they're going through, so they might laugh with them, or kind of show they're not the same, like, respect or answer they were looking for.
Yep, misunderstood, absolutely, yep.
A lot of people sometimes say people with mental health are just trying to get attention, so maybe they're scared that people won't believe them.
Yep, you are spot on. They're trying to get attention. That's one of the top reasons, even in the faith community. Yep. Yes, totally. Yep, in the back. The whole thing of not wanting to be around you is probably most key there, what you said. Very much so. People tend to stay away. Uh-huh. That they're going to get made fun of. So they're anticipating that it's going to go bad. Thank you. So just to recap, stigma is a huge deal. Thank you for the hands that went up. I'm gonna move on a little bit here. Stigma is a huge deal, and all the reasons that you all shared, you know, behind why that is spot on. You all are exactly right. Every day we hear this at NAMI. Every day we hear it when we answer the helpline. I hear it oftentimes in support groups. I get text messages about it all the time. You know, even right now, I have a friend who just moved to Seattle, and he's trying to cope with a new job and wondering whether he should tell them about his mental health. He's worried about almost everything that you all said. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. All right. So it says, what is stigma, stereotyping, labels, bullying, discrimination? You all are already familiar with probably those 4 different elements. All right. But they all fall under and all fall within what we call stigma. All right. Bullying probably is a big deal in schools, and you probably have seen a big movement now to try to end bullying, right? Discrimination, that's nothing new. It's been happening, but it's a part of it. We're trying to have people like aware and get people to stop being discriminatory, right? Labels and stereotyping, stuff that we even do. Even I have to get better at doing, right? Amongst my friends, family, little things that we joke at. Oh, they must be crazy, yeah? We kind of joke at it, but there's a real element to it. So we got to be mindful of that and try to eliminate some of that. All right, so I'll have Hailey and Tristan come up and share with you now.
Hi guys, so both of us are on the Be Well board like we said, and we were invited here today to share our mental health stories because I think that they might be really useful for you guys to share. So I'll go first. I've dealt with mental health twice in my life. The first time I was actually only in first grade, and I started having a lot of family problems at home with money and a separation in my family. And I was really worried about everyone that I cared about and about losing them. And I had a lot of anxiety going on as a first grader. I developed a lot of really weird rituals. I deemed certain numbers, colors, and foods as safe, and certain numbers, colors, and foods and places as not safe. And I would do the craziest stuff to try to do what I thought would keep the world safe. And this is known as Obsessive-Compulsive Disorder. And it might sound a little bit wild that a first grader could develop this, but mental health is when something really traumatic happens in your life and then you start acting a certain way to try to cope with it. But it was a really negative coping mechanism. I started doing bad in school. I couldn't be around my friends. I couldn't eat or do certain things. And so it took me about 6 months until I told my mom about it, and another 6 months until doctors diagnosed me with OCD. And the important part about this story is that you're never too young to be going through a mental health challenge. I know that a lot of you guys are in middle school, and it must be tough to have feelings like this, and adults say, well, you're too young to know what life is really like, or you don't have these worries because you're so young. But this can happen to anyone at any time. And it was important for me to speak up for myself and let people know what was going on. The other time that I went through a mental health challenge was when I was a sophomore in high school. All of a sudden at the beginning of the year, I stopped doing all the activities that I used to enjoy. I stopped hanging out with friends, I isolated myself, and I didn't want to do anything except for lay in bed and sometimes do my homework. The big indicator for me was when it started affecting my schoolwork and my everyday activities. I couldn't do them without feeling extremely sad and isolated. It took me about 6 months before I went and saw my school counselor, and at that point I was feeling suicidal and I had let it get way worse than it should have. The reason why I didn't come out sooner was because of stigma, and I was afraid that people would say it wasn't real and that, you're just stressed out about high school. So I actually went and saw another counselor on my own without telling my parents, and that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. They let me know that, I was struggling with depression and there were things that I could do. And I'll tell you about some of those more positive coping mechanisms later.
Within the community of the LGBT, sometimes there's a extra pressure on how your body looks, and being attractive to others is really important. And that was another thing that was detrimental to my mental health state. I've always had an extremely unhealthy relationship with food. If I'm emotional or sad, I usually eat, or if I'm just feeling overly emotional, it's a way I used to cope with my stress and emotions. So I'd binge, eat lots of food, which is when you eat lots of food, and then purge. So that was a way for that my mind told me, and I thought that I was going to get how I wanted to look, how I wanted to get skinny and be more attractive to others and to myself. So that was extremely unhealthy coping mechanism, and it pushed me down a really hard path. I was really alone. I stopped hanging out with friends. If I couldn't go out and eat and not being home in time to purge, that was really hard for me, and I would get anxiety attacks a lot when I'd go out into public. So I usually just stayed in my room at home and was really lonely and super depressed. So that was extremely hard for me. So I had been purging for almost a year and a half before my parents found out. And when they found out, I was extremely angry. I didn't want to get help because I was just so consumed with my eating disorder that I didn't want to get help. I just wanted to continue doing what I was doing. But finally seeing that getting help was ultimately going to be the best option for me, I was extremely grateful for that.
So we said earlier, warning signs. Everybody say warning signs.
Warning signs.
Yep, got to know the warning signs. So there's 10 different warning signs that are usually presented in our presentations that NAMI offers. All right. There's some that are on the back side of that sheet that you have, and then the others are going to be listed here on our presentation. So it says feeling very sad and withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. Everybody say 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So of course, if you have like a bad grade, or if you break up with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or friend, you might feel sad. But if you feel sad for 2 weeks, there may be something else going on. There could be something else going on. All right? So the length of time to how someone feels, the emotions, the feelings that a person has, is also an indicator to say, hey, there could be something else going on aside from just, oh, that's just John, he broke up with, Brittany the other day. Or, so-and-so just mad because, they got an A minus and they always get A pluses, right? There could be something else actually going on. So feeling very sad or withdrawn, if they isolate for 2 weeks, that's a key piece. Severe out of control, risk-taking behaviors that cause harm to self or others. I know I definitely did some risk-taking behaviors, driving unsafely, where they found me on the freeway twice because of my mental health condition. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, sometimes with a racing heart, physical discomfort, or fast breathing. Seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real. I shared in the last group, that's a challenge for me because I'm a person who has a faith background, grew up in church. We believe in angels. Well, I followed angels on the freeway twice. Very dangerous. I don't drive anymore, by the way, just to kind of give you a heads up. And the last one says drastic changes in mood, behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. That one is important for the end. We're going to talk about coping strategies on how to deal with that. The sleeping habits piece is a big piece behind like most mental health conditions, making sure you get adequate sleep. All right. Couple other warning signs: extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still. That puts a person in physical danger or causes school failure. Now that one is kind of arguable. That's you can go back and forth with that one, but usually it's going to be the severity of a person experiencing that. So sometimes we all have difficulty concentrating. That doesn't mean that we have something going on. That doesn't mean that we have a mental health diagnosis or condition, right? Severity, how severe it is, and how intense is the inability to concentrate, and for how long. How long are we having difficulty concentrating? That all comes into play with how a person gets diagnosed and whether or not somebody actually does have something. So don't leave here today thinking, oh gosh, I must have, take your time, all right? Don't be alarmed. But it really depends on those three factors, all right? And we're not providers, we're not prescribers, we're not a psychiatrist, we're not counselors, so we can't do the diagnosing ourselves, all right? Us that are represented here today, myself as NAMI and the two presenters. Intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities, throwing up, using laxatives, and not eating to lose weight, significant weight loss or weight gain, using alcohol or drugs excessively. All right, those are all warning signs. And the last one, trying to harm oneself, attempting suicide, or making plans to do so. I know from my experience, I definitely had engaged in some self-harm when my symptoms were intense a couple years ago. I did engage in some self-harm where I actually burned my face, all right? Something that helps me to do better is what I call DBT, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. How many have heard of DBT before? No? Wow, okay. Dialectical behavioral therapy is a type of therapy, and for me, it's kind of like the equivalent of Neo being trained by Morpheus. Y'all remember The Matrix? Any people remember The Matrix? Y'all too young for that? So Neo being trained by Morpheus in The Matrix on how to fight in The Matrix, but the difference is for me, it felt like I was being trained on how to fight or support and defend myself mentally, psychologically. So they teach a lot of skills. They talk about mindfulness, how to ground yourself, how to be present, and how to observe. So I do a lot of that now, almost every single day throughout the day. Other things that help me are support groups, and then recovery through service. So I was able to reconcile some of my faith values by simply serving like I'm doing today. I volunteered with NAMI for about a year, and they hired me about 6 months ago to finally do this kind of work. So I enjoy serving, I enjoy giving, I get a joy out of serving, and that tends to balance out my mental health as well. And lastly, medications, that does help me. I'm on 2 different medications. One is a mood stabilizer, and the other is an antipsychotic. So one focuses on my mood, and the other one focuses on hallucinations, visual and auditory. So I won't get into the specifics on like what the medication is called, but I can share with you the class of medication. And now I'll turn it back over to Hailey and Tristan to share with you all what helps.
So what helps? So for me, what has helped a lot was developing a more healthy relationship with food and working on self-care and self-love and just working on bettering myself and my mindset and having a more healthy mindset. Especially after talking to counselors and therapists, my doctor, that was extremely helpful. But then also reaching out to my friends and letting them know what I was going through was an extremely big moment and a way for me to get that off my shoulders and talked with a different type of person I trust. That wasn't an adult authority figure, but more so a peer. Resulting reflections. I'm extremely grateful that my parents found out when they did, because who knows where I'd be today if I didn't get the treatment that I needed. So I'm extremely grateful for that.
This is my favorite part of the presentation because there's definitely positive and negative coping strategies, and I've gone through both. Some negative coping strategies that I dealt with was like sleeping all the time or eating a bunch or avoiding all my homework and things like that. And like those are things that can make you feel good in the moment and make you feel better, but they're negative coping strategies because long term, those aren't going to work forever. And also some of them can harm you. But some positive coping strategies that I really love is one that my counselor gave me when I was in first grade is I wear bracelets or just a bracelet pretty much every day. And one of the things that go along with anxiety and OCD is like a lot of fidgeting and not being able to focus. And sometimes you just need something to like play with to like calm down. So I didn't want to like carry around a fidget spinner and be one of those kids, but there's ways to do it without having the stigma attached to you. Another thing is making sure to reach out to friends and stuff. During middle school was when I started like developing that depression and stuff, and it was really hard for me to reach out to friends because you constantly feel like you're alone. But when I finally realized that if they don't want to hear about my mental health problems or help me when I'm having a hard time, they aren't your true friends, that's when it all changed for me, and I found those friends like Tristan who were there to help me whenever I needed. Another, probably the most important positive coping strategy was making sure that you just continue doing things that bring you joy. Every year before the school year starts, I do a self-check-in and I make sure that the activities I'm doing, like student council and things like that, are making me feel happy rather than overworked. I know that like as student leaders, we do a lot of things because we feel like we should, or we get really stressed out from the things that we do, and that's okay sometimes, but you need to make sure the activities that you choose to involve yourself in are for the right reasons. So yeah, after doing all that stuff, I definitely feel a lot better.
Thank you for remembering. All right, so what are some things that you all do? We're getting ready to get into the Q&A session, the question and answer session in just a moment, but what are some things that you all do to make yourselves feel better when you're stressed or when you're going through things?
I've always loved to play soccer, so I'll go for a jog or I'll go kick some soccer balls.
Awesome, pretty active.
Offenses or anything, but just spending time with them helps me calm down.
Awesome. So it sounds like equine therapy, maybe. Yeah. Has anybody heard of equine therapy? I'm not saying that you're using it per se, but that is a real practice, the use of horses for managing your mental health. Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
I'm a dancer, so sometimes, like, to calm down, I just, like, turn on music and I improv. So, and that always makes me feel better because it's something that I love to do.
Me too. Friday nights at 7. Don't tell nobody, though. For real, I do. In my room by myself. Yeah.
I just, like, go out and run a mile.
Awesome. Running. Totally, yep. What is it that, what is it about running that helps, or just being active? Yep.
Endorphins.
Yep. Endorphins, yes. Helps to clear your mind? Yes.
You feel that you're in control of the situation because you decide, I'll have to run, where you run, it's like how long you run, and
Yep. Getting a sense of control. Yeah. One more.
so you're focused on running, you aren't focused on your stresses anymore, you have other things to think about.
Yep. It's a perfect way of being mindful and being present. Everyone say mindful. Mindful. Say present. Present. Yeah. Neither in the past. Maybe something in the past is worrying you, nor too far in the future. All right. Worrying about that upcoming exam or that test, or whether she's going to say yes or he's going to say no. Yeah. So being mindful and being present, yeah, totally, all great answers to why running is helpful. So thank you for sharing what you shared. Couple things on the cards you all wrote already. One of the things that you enjoy about life. Could I hear what you have on the card so far? Yep.
Well, one of my favorite things about life is I like to focus on the little things that make me happy instead of, oh, this has to happen for me to be happy. I focus on my friends and my family. So.
Awesome. Friends and family. And you can just call it out popcorn style, just wherever you're at. You don't have to raise your hand. Just what have you got on your card? One thing you enjoy about life or living. What'd you have written?
You get to determine your life.
You get to determine it. Okay, good, good. Yep.
I like eating delicious foods.
Eating delicious foods, not the bad ones. Yes. Thank you. I like that. Helping others. Go ahead and just call it out. Being outside. Yep.
Having your cousins and family members and life and stuff with them.
Spending time with family. Got it. Good, good. Talking with friends. You trust. Ooh, that's good. That's good. Anybody else? One more time for me. I couldn't hear you. Music. Yes.
My dog.
Your dog. Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't heard that. I would thought that would be the first thing in Oregon, but I mean I'm born and raised from here. I haven't heard one dog yet, even in the last session. Okay, good, good. Okay, thank you for sharing. And then those cards that you have, the second card that says where you wrote down the reason why you believe the presenter, me, is wearing white. Can you make sure you turn that in at the end? I can't reveal it to you, but I would like to get your feedback as to why you believe what you believe as far as what you put down.
Can you tell us if we're right?
I can't. I can't. But it's no different than the feedback. You know, there's a feedback form that you receive, the evaluation form. It's one page. We're going to have you fill that out at the end of the Q&A session. I'll have Hailey and Tristian come on up, and you all can ask them questions based on their experience or questions that you might have in regards to what they may have shared. All right.
So real quick before we get to the question section, we just wanted to share kind of the end of our stories, where we are now, and some of our successes, because it's true that you can be super successful even if you're going through a mental health condition. Both of us were going through these mental health challenges while we were in high school, and we were actually on the board. You guys probably met this year's student executive board for OASC yesterday. We were on that board last year while we were going through these things, and like you can do anything you want to, even if you have a mental health challenge. So some of my personal successes is I go and visit a counselor every month. Everybody who's close to me in my life knows about my mental health conditions, and I'm genuinely just doing a lot better, and I get to help people by letting them know about what I went through.
Yeah. So I've been almost 1 year without purging, which was a really big accomplishment for myself, and I was extremely proud of myself for that. Dreams for the future, I think it's extremely good that the topic of mental health is being brought up, especially with youth, because that often I feel like the older generation thinks we're just faking it or it's not real, but like youth's bringing up that conversation is really well, and the conversation about eating disorders is starting to become brought up more, but I feel like it just surrounds one certain type of group of people, which is usually white women, and that's how it's portrayed in the media and a lot of things. But it affects boys, it affects girls, it affects everyone, and it can spur from many different things like victims of sexual assault, trauma, stress. So just bringing up that topic and getting the discussion started is extremely important. But yeah.
Now we want to do some questions. So if you guys have questions about anything at all, how to deal with mental health in your schools, how to deal with it personally, anything at all, we're open. Does anyone have a question? Yeah.
If you come to realize that like one of your family or friends has a mental health problem, how would you like approach that?
Okay. So I've gone through this as well. Some of my friends have, like, I thought that they might have one, and it's a really hard position to be in. What I would do first is figure out the severity of it and try to talk to them about it, ask them questions about how they're feeling and stuff. all while continuing to include them. One of the biggest problems with mental health is isolation. So if you feel like somebody you know has a mental health condition, don't be like, oh, they're weird, I don't want to hang out with them. Continue to invite them because they need to get out even more and just live everyday life. And then once you figure out how severe it is, if you think that they're going to like harm themselves or others, definitely tell an adult. Like your school counselors are used to students coming in and telling them anonymously of a student who's struggling, or even their parents if you feel comfortable doing that, or your parents, but you definitely should let someone else know as soon as you can.
Definitely.
Any other questions? No? Yeah?
So there's a boy in my school who has mental health issues, and he's kind of taken advantage of and bullied, and I don't really know how to address it. So what would be your recommendation?
I have a recommendation.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say you should start a campaign to end the silence. That's what I think you should do. I think you should start a campaign for a movement in your school and say, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. And you don't have to necessarily do it for that person. You can easily do it for individuals who are getting ready to come into your school after you get ready to leave. And something to be a movement that started that ends up being a blessing to everyone after that. That's what I say.
Yeah.
You also have to come to your school talk.
Yeah, that's very true. It can be a big thing like that. A lot of high schools, as I'm sure you guys know, are starting movements like that with like kindness weeks and unity weeks and even mental health days. Some high schools have like safe rooms for people who are going through a mental health challenge. So like you guys aren't too young to do things like that. Or it can be a small thing like going and talking to that student one-on-one and letting him or her know that you see them and you're there for them. And sometimes it just takes that one person to like speak up to let them know that it's going to be okay. Any other questions? No? What time is it? Okay. Oh, did you have one? Yeah.
So like, this is much more basic, but if you lose someone or lose someone who had a condition, what would be the right protocol to do that? Should you go talk to a counselor or talk to a parents about therapist?
So you know, like if you knew someone who had it and then like you just want to know what the protocol would be. Well, you might have a better answer for this, but personally, I would go, if it's someone that you know at school who you aren't very close with, I would go to a school counselor first, because school counselors are trained to know what to do after that. But if it's someone that you know in your family or something, then definitely go to like your parents. You just have to figure out what the best connection would be for them. And then if it's someone who you have no idea what to do, there's this thing called Safe Oregon. It's all one word, Safe Oregon, and you can look it up. And there's a phone number that's free to all students in Oregon, and you can text it. And this is more if you need like immediate help, like if you know one of your friends are considering suicide or something. And it's like a tip line that you can text anonymously and just let them know the name of the student and what's going on, and somebody will respond to it immediately with whatever they deem appropriate to help them. So that's a really great resource too. Yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. So like we said earlier, we're a part of the Be Well board, and we're going to have applications over here afterwards if you want to come and talk to us about it. And that's a really great opportunity as well. Thank you guys for being such great listeners today.
Thank you.